do most of this process before, but I take this slab, it's right off the slab roller, and it's got, you know, as most people do, I roll it between a couple pieces of canvas, and that gives us this little canvasy texture on the surface. And I don't really want that on these pieces. This is similar to what I do with the lambs and like that. Oh great, I just put a nice crease there with my fingernail. The good thing about being a potter for me is that you don't have to be that bright to be a potter. It seems like that anyway at times. It's probably my saving grace. So these are brand new cutters. Just came in today. So I need to break them in, right? As I touched the edge, it reminded me I need my little push stick here. And I am going to, these will end up being buttons. And before you start going, oh my gosh, that's so fast, Jim. It is. I used to cut them by hand. I used to use, in fact, this is the piece that it was made from. I put it down and cut it out with a pin tool. So if you're only making one or two, you know, that still works really fine, but I have to make more than one or two. And I will show you how I texture these in a second. I don't texture them until I have them all cut out. I used to sometimes texture them before I cut them, and you can do it that way. It just didn't work for me that well, because then I wasn't being, I thought, artistic enough. And I'm going to let these sit in here for an hour or so, so when I get done peeling them and like that, don't worry, I'm not done. I have to do this whole tray before I can decorate them. I decorate about a third of them, and a third of them will stay, or 2/3 of them will stay plain. And why do I do that? That tells me I have to turn up a kiln. I do that because that's the ratio that typically they will sell at. You know, if you keep metrics on everything you're doing, if you keep track and you just don't guess, you get pretty accurate with what you're making, and you don't make a lot of junk stuff that either, you know, it can't move to market. And you know, I hate to be so crass about it, but this is how I make my living, so you know, I do want to know what sells and what doesn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 4 is what? Come on, help me out now. 8 times 4 is, that's even more. It's 33 right now. Okay, and I need 48. $49, $50. Why did I make 50 when I only need 48? Well, you know, there are going to be a few that are going to be buttons that are concave. So I'm just going to finish out this rack right now and not worry about counting anymore, because I know I have enough, which is why I was counting to make sure I had enough, and then I could start thinking, okay, now I'm going to be making another slab. Well, I'm not going to be making another slab of these right now, not enough grease. And that's why you can see that one's warping a little bit. It's because this clay is fairly soft compared to what I normally like to do with this process. Okay, so now I'm not going to take this off yet. I'm going to decorate them. Let me turn up that kiln before I forget. So I turn up that kiln, set it for another hour. So what I do, by decorating now versus taking them out of the, you know, declaying, whatever you want to call that, it gives it just a little bit of support in the process. I always, it's kind of like my signature design-ish thing. On my textured pieces, I add little dots, and I use the back of the pin tool. So, and so it doesn't stick, I stick it in just jam it right down quickly into the WD-40. Remember, that's what I put in my little poor man's stamp pad there. It's one of my favorite patterns. And I like adding these little dots. It adds quite a bit of interest in the finished product. It also allows you to take care of some of your little handling problems, like the fingernails. Notice how quickly this is happening. Part of that is because I've done more than one or two. So I like the freedom of doing these textures real quickly. That way you don't think about it too much. When you think about it too much, they become contrived, and I don't want them to be contrived. So I do it pretty quickly. There will be a lag in the video of approximately an hour as I let these set up, but you're not going to know because there's like the instant, just the instant. One more time. It's like magic. There'll be an instant where it just goes by. So let's try it one more time. Bam, just like that. Through the magic of, well, not really magic, but we're back. I'm going to show you what I do to form this particular convex button. Convex, remember, is the humpy, right? This is concave. So we're going to make them shaped like that. And I have the molds right over here. You can refer to them as molds, but they're really a form more than a mold. It's gonna make it a little hard to see, isn't it? Ah, too bad. So these are now stiff enough that when I start to form them, they're not going to ruin the edges. It's not the form itself. You'll see what I'm doing here in a second. There you go. Then I take my trusty little stamp and stamp the back. Two directions, boom, boom, boom. There we go, there's three. Now this is going to become more obvious in a bit because you'll see as I take them off these forms here, or off the table, you'll be able to see better. And the next batch, I will handle them slightly differently. This is just an old sheet that's filled with sand, tightly filled with sand, so it forms that nice little rounded edge or rounded bottom. And I mess with each one of them like that. I do that so that the form won't warp in the air. Clay wants to always go back to its original shape, whatever it was. If it was curved, it wants to do that. It's part of the reason we have the infamous S crack at the bottom of wheel throwing things. Is clay is trying to unscrew itself from the wheel head. And when we form these little pieces on the slab roller, we're stretching it, we're just pulling it and then putting that new clay over here. And that's hard in the clay. Clay doesn't like that. So let's get another batch here. And you'll see what I do in more real time. So I do 6 at a time normally, but that last time I didn't have enough room to do that. It goes pretty quickly, and when it's done, what I will do is I will cover the top layer with one of my little boards so that the air, as they sit there overnight, doesn't mess with it. I believe I just ruined one. Haven't done that in a while. So these will dry really pretty quickly. In the summertime, I would do them 2 a day, and I'll do that tomorrow because the studio is warm with the little kiln. So I put a board over the top like that, and then the air doesn't dry that top too quickly. Something we don't talk about very often in the pottery world is that there's so much finishing work that goes into a piece. Making the form has to be one of the fastest parts of the process. You can't spend a lot of time making the form itself because the finishing takes so much time. And when the glazing and that kind of stuff, and loading the kiln and unloading the kiln, and pretty soon you're not able to bring the piece to market of any sort. I mean, you just can't. And that's part of the preciousness, and I think that's part of the reason we see a piece as precious, and probably should wean ourselves from that thought process. Okay, I'm almost done. This has been, believe it or not, 48 since we started this.